Chairman. I had a question for Dr. Voytek, specifically about oil and gas exploration, and your thoughts on if you think that it's practical that some of the technology that's being adapted can be specifically used to detect leaks at great depths as it pertains to oil and gas exploration, particularly offshore.
Yeah, so one of the examples I gave in my testimony was a technology that was developed at Woods Hole Oceanographic, and it was a combination of an autonomous vehicle and a mass spectrometer that could detect hydrocarbons, and it was used to identify and map the leak from the Deep Horizon spill. And I think that was its original design for the astrobiology program was to try to search for the source of biogenic gases and chemicals. So to identify the sources in the deep sea from hydrothermal vents of, say, the production of methane or hydrocarbons that were produced by microbes. And so I think that was a great example of that technology being adapted to a very important environmental problem.
Thank you. Did you want to add something? It looked like you wanted to add something, Dr. Dick. Okay. I did have a question for you, Dr. Dick, specifically about the emergence of astrobiology and how you thought that NASA's early initiatives, such as the Viking landers on Mars, affect the evolution of research at NASA related to the search for life in the universe.
Well, the Viking experiments had a great impact, I think. The biology experiments were 3 biology experiments. One of them, one of the principal investigators to this day believes he found biology on Mars, but the gas chromatograph mass spectrometer found no organic molecules on Mars, which means if you don't have organic molecules, you can't have life. So that sort of put a damper on the Mars program for a while. I think it was something like 15 years at least before we went back to Mars with another spacecraft. So those kinds of things really can have an impact. But now, with the rovers that we have there now, including Curiosity, they're looking for those organic molecules. They haven't found any complex organic molecules, maybe some very simple ones. But of course, we've only looked in very specific places. So in those specific kinds of events in the development of astrobiology can have a great effect, as in the case of the Mars rock ALH-84001 in 1996. I think that gave a great spur to astrobiology, the development of astrobiology over a much broader program than the old NASA exobiology program, which was pretty much limited to origins of life, and that's the astrobiology program that we have today.
Well, and speaking of that, like, how does that history sort of inform planning for the next decade of astrobiology research?
Well, I think you know, if we find anything on Mars in the nature of organic molecules or other things like that, history tells us that would have a great impact on funding for the future. So we're all hopeful that such things will be found, aside from all the other interesting things that those rovers are finding.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.